A massive welcome to John Joe Devlin, Chris Giles, Matthew Fay and Brian Creech from the legendary Ploughbhoys CSC in Philadelphia. Lads, great to have you with us here today on the Celtic Exchange. John Joe, to get us started, do you want to tell us a bit about how you ended up part of the Ploughbhoys CSC and how long you've been involved out there in that part of the world?
So I've been out in Philadelphia this time. I've been living in Philly since about 2008. And we were watching games, but we were watching them in a bar. We were sharing it with different English teams. We're watching it there. We never were in our own spot. We never guaranteed volume. So we kind of want to watch our own games. So the chance came about 2012. Celtic played Real Madrid. And down at the Playing the Stars, we had Charlie and the boys out, and we hosted an event there, and it went down well. And some of the boys were like, well, why not just try and do our own wee thing? We're going to get the big screen and we're going to get the volume all the time to watch the games. So then there was me, myself, Seamus Cummins, Fitzy, Martin Brady, Gary McDonald, Brian O'Donnell. We all kind of split off and we got in touch with the foundation and the federation, and we got the go-ahead to do our own wee thing.
And did you find, John Joe, when you were out there was automatically a big Irish community and kind of, by extension, a big Celtic community in that part of the world?
There isn't. You'd be surprised that when I first moved over here, I thought, we've grown up in Glasgow, you think, the Irish all love Celtic, but they don't really. There's a pocket of them that do, you know what I mean, that die hard like us. That they might have a small affinity with them, but they all have their EPL teams.
Yeah. It's an ongoing challenge, isn't it? We speak to the various different CSCs, and it seems to be an ongoing challenge for Celtic clubs to fight off that competition, the huge power of the Premier League.
It's grown up in the west of Scotland. You assume, you spend your summers over in holiday in Ireland or whatever, and you just thought, everybody's a Celtic fan. They might have that wee thing, but they're not really. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's a challenge. Chris, yourself, like John Joe, you're a founding member, I believe. So again, could you tell us your own background, how you first got involved with the club?
Well, I'd known John Joe from we used to live down the Jersey Shore in Wildwood, and I just met my wife and I moved up to the Philadelphia area. And as John just said, the boys had just started the club up, and just so happens I had moved up to the Philly area, so I started coming down, watching the games, the summer to go on a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, hang out with the boys, have a good time.
Yeah, so that's not a Philly accent I'm picking up from you, Chris. So what's your background?
No, not at all. I'm actually from Belfast. I moved over to America around about 97. But I mean, I grew up with Celtic the whole time in Belfast. Used to get the ferries across every other weekend or whatever, to watch the games. So it's always a good time, though.
Yeah, no doubt. Brian, similar question. I guess I'll come to you in terms of your own background, your own introduction to Celtic and how you get involved with the guys at the club.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in North Carolina, so I didn't grow up in the Philadelphia region. And when I first moved to Philadelphia, that was probably the late 90s, right around 2000 or so. I knew Celtic. I liked the club, and my first exposure to watching them, I didn't know there was really Celtic supporters clubs or anything at that time. Was I bought a satellite dish and watched Setanta Sports, right, to get the sports package back then, so you could watch them play. And then fast forward a few years later, I would just kind of watch them at home myself. And then I'm in a bagpipe band, so we were playing at the Plough. I think it was a Burns Day. John Joe might have been when I met John Joe the first time, and we just kind of started talking. And he told me that they had a supporters club there, and they showed the matches on Saturday and Sunday, and maybe come down and kind of meet the lads, and that's kind of what I did. And that probably was somewhere around 2015 or so.
Okay,
that'll be my guess. And then that's kind of how I got involved with the Ploughbhoys, and kind of backdoored my way in. I didn't know any of the lads, and kind of just didn't even know there was a bunch of folks that watched the club until I kind of just ran into John Joe at the pub.
Yeah, and you're approaching 10 years, give or take, so it's been a good decision by the sounds of it. Matthew, Same question, just to kickstart things, to get us going. What's your own introduction to the club?
Sure, absolutely. My story is a little bit different. I obviously grew up here in the United States. I grew up about 30 minutes outside of Philadelphia, and before I started to watch Celtic and become proper Tim, I really did not watch soccer at all. I was more of the Philadelphia sports variety with our hockey, basketball, football, baseball, and the like. And my dad had struck up a friendship with Chris through his father-in-law. My dad used to work with his father-in-law, Pete. And my dad had went down to a game first, and Chris had given my dad as a gift a couple of Celtic tops and one of the scarves from the Kano Foundation. And that hung in my room for probably about a year before I actually got down to the Plough. And I sort of came on board during Ange's first season in 2021. I can remember, I think it was a game in October where Celtic were playing Motherwell, and the weather was nice enough to where we could have the TVs outside. And I had met all the boys at that time, and I was really looking for a sense of community. I was really between jobs and kind of down on my luck. And Celtic, with their fan-driven media, had really given me something to do with all the daily podcasts to keep up with. So my journey did start in October of 2021, and I can remember watching Jota score his first goal. And that had been my favorite player ever since, and I thought we lost him forever. People come to Celtic, but they don't often return. So it's good to see him back. But that's kind of how my journey started through Chris here, and I will be forever grateful. I more so follow Celtic than the teams that I grew up with. I've never missed a game since 2021, and I've missed plenty of games through Philadelphia sports. So this has just been something to help me connect with my heritage, number one, and just to connect with a community of people now where I feel like it started with football, but it's become much more than that.
It's a great story, Martin. It's great to hear. Thanks for sharing it with us, because what we often find as well is a lot of the clubs have a really nice blend. So, John Joe's from our part of the world in Glasgow, Chris not too far, Belfast, but Matt, yourself and Brian from out there in the States. And we hear more often than not this really nice blend of people from different areas, but all with this kind of fairly common interest, whether it's, Irish heritage and roots and certainly Celtic supporting roots. And the sense of community comes through time after time after time, and it's really great to hear that story. Chris, just in terms of the club itself, so you guys were founded in 2013. Maybe you can tell us a bit about some of the challenges of that and how it's been in general over the last 12 years or so. But there was also a forebearer, is that the right term? Guys before you that were set up in 97 out in that part of the world, which I think you guys are always quite keen to pay credit to as well.
I mean, the whole thing with starting the club up was obviously you have so many people who are interested in stuff now. It's always, you get a spot in a bar or wherever you're having your games and stuff now, and you want to sort of help the bar as well, by bringing people in. And it's always a challenge to try and get more people in and be at every game sort of thing, and that it is a big sort of a challenge. But I mean, we seem to be doing pretty well. I mean, we probably got around about 35, 40 members so far, and we're always looking to grow and continue, as well. But so far we seem to be doing pretty good from what I see, and the boys who started it, the likes of John Joe Swing, the Seamus, I think Joe Brooks was involved at one stage as well. I'm not sure, but I mean, it's always great to have them guys on board and stuff, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would be your role at the club then, Chris? What's your specific role?
I'm actually the acting president at the minute. I was voted in, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not sure. I took over from John Joe there. John Joe had he wanted to step down and spend a little bit more time with his family and stuff. So I took over with the club and became the president.
Yeah, presidents in America is a touchy subject at the best of times. Chris, I'm sure you're doing a great role.
Not that sort of president.
John, to come back to yourself then, what again, a common theme that comes through with each of the CSCs we speak to is that whether, someone's, president like Chris, or I know Matt deals with merchandise and different things, there's so many roles and so much work to be done. And it's very much a case of, many hands make light work. You do need a real collective community of folks to make things happen, don't you?
It's amazing. Like I've been fortunate. I've been members of a couple of good CSCs over here over the years. I was down in the Wildwood CSC in Jersey, but you go way back to the day there was Fort Lauderdale CSC and John Payton. He done everything himself. It was crazy. And back then it was a satanic issues where we were paying $120, $130 a game. And there's many a game we wouldn't have seen if it wasn't for that man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we take a hat off to the ball going way back, and then Philly. Philly, the CSC started in 1997. It was started by Philip the Clydebank, James Conboy, Bobby Campbell, God bless him, he's passed away now, and I think Paddy Rooney, he's from Castlewelland. Maybe he'll kill me if he hears me. He's not from there, but whatever. And Paddy actually went on. He was a Grand Marshal in the Philadelphia Paddy's Day Parade this year. So he went all the way from starting with ECSC out in one of the suburbs in Philly, leading the Irish community through the streets of Philadelphia, which is a big achievement. You know what I mean? So it's nice to see one of the Celtic guys go on and do that.
Yeah, brilliant to hear. And there's so much involved, and obviously at the core of everything is football and Celtic games, and everything that entails over a season. But there's so many extensions of that, and we're going to get to some of the stories. I've heard about the rooftop parties you guys had last summer and various key events and visitors over the years. Matt, you're involved in the merchandise side of things. Looks like you're sporting a bit of the merchandise right now. What's that been like? How's that evolved in the few short years that you've been involved so far?
Yeah, it's really been a great experience. I think I took over as the merch manager about halfway through last season. And I really feel like it's been a great way for me to connect with other people who might come to games but aren't quite members yet. There are times where there have been other sporting events on the television whilst Celtic is on. I could remember recently there was a Penn State football game. It was a college team who was playing against Ohio State, and there was a Celtic game on at the same time. And there were plenty of people who were there for Celtic, but also for Penn State as well. And you get people coming over to the merch table like, what are you guys doing here? What is this? This is great. So you really get to grab the ear of some people who might not have been bit by the Celtic bug yet. And then you see some of those people return, not for any other sporting events, but for specifically Celtic as well. So we've really tried to get a variety of different types of merchandise and make it advertise the Ploughbhoys, but also make it clear that we are connected to Celtic. So right now, I believe we have some options through CS Terrace Tees, a website that has some of our hoodies and T-shirts. Most of the other merch at this point is sold by me. And then the proceeds, we often choose different charities to give that money that we've raised. We do that with merchandise sales, 50/50s and the like, whichever way we do decide to raise money. And then our officers chat chooses a charity to donate a portion of our proceeds to. I believe a lot of our proceeds that we raised through merchandise and other ways at the rooftop party was donated to the Baltimore Irish School in Maryland. And that's a music school. So we do often research many charities, and we want to keep the heart of what we do as far as our money raising as close to Celtic and the way that their foundation runs things as well. So I really feel like charity is at the heart of a lot of what we do through raising money through merchandise and other ways.
Yeah, you've stole my line there. I was going to say charity seems to be at the heart of what you guys do. And again, it's something that's so important to so many CSCs. Brian, on that note then, how important is charity in general to you guys? And how do you decide? So Matt's mentioned there a couple of the charities that you support. How do you decide as a collective who best to support on any given occasion?
Yeah, great question. I think obviously at its core, right? The Brother Wilford mindset in the club is all about charity and supporting those in need, right? And so I think it's very important as a Celtic supporters club, that we follow that same mantra. And so I think, we're always looking for ways to contribute to causes that certainly make sense. And as Matt mentioned, looking to fundraise in a lot of different ways. We get together as a leadership group and kind of kick around some different ideas and sort of pick a cause. And we do that throughout the year, right? It's not just a one-time thing. It's an ongoing thing for us, where we're always looking to help out when we can. So it's very important to us. It's very important, I think, to continue to follow, the model of the club and what they look to do. And I think us as a CSC, under Chris's leadership, I think we do a very good job of identifying causes and contributing where we can.
Yeah, and it definitely seems to be the case. What kind of charities are you supporting this time around, Brian? Do you work with the foundation? Do you try and support the club's foundation, or do you tend to branch off and do, other worthy causes?
Yeah, I think we're always trying to identify different causes. We're very involved in trying to support the Cano Foundation. We're very involved in trying to support some local soccer clubs in our area that kind of promote. We're working on some stuff like that, helping them get off the ground. Chris probably can speak a little bit more to some of the direct charities. Yeah,
sounds good. Cano's already come up a couple of times, whether it's through some of the merchandise that Matt mentioned and Brian. I know Joe Mackin has been out there, and we had Joe on the show recently talking about the incredible work that the Cano Foundation do. Chris, before I maybe chat a wee bit more about charity with you, Matt had mentioned that there's some T-shirts that you guys are doing, Champions T-shirts through, is it csterracetees.com? Eddie Cantwell, our good friend in common, has promised me one of those T-shirts, so fingers crossed I get that in the coming weeks. But it's interesting, I want to mention Eddie briefly because I actually only met Eddie around about a year or so ago, and I've got to know him pretty well, and he's obviously heavily involved in what you guys doing. It's something that means a lot to him. And he actually mentioned to me in the run-up to this recording this afternoon that, quote-unquote, getting involved in meeting some of you guys actually changed his life. He feels that strongly and that passionately about that. Could you tell us, Chris, a wee bit about Eddie and some of the stuff he does for you from here in Glasgow?
Well, Eddie has a title with us. He's the International Liaison Officer. And he does a great job. He a lot of the times he sort of sources some of our T-shirts and stuff out and what we do and what we sort of get, like our scarves or T-shirts, whether it be stuff like that. But also he has a connection with Celtic. Joe Mackin, he's very good with Joe Mackin. JP, he knows JP very well and stuff like that. So he's sort of a close connection that we have through us to Celtic, so he's always a great helping hand.
Yeah. You mentioned Joe Mackin, so I'll bring him back up. So Eddie tells me about, I think it was your 10th anniversary celebration, so it must have been fairly recently, the last couple of years. Joe was over. I believe George McCluskey, obviously a big Celtic hero, and that you got some, key video messages from players and the manager. Tell us a wee bit about that.
Yeah, we had the 10th anniversary there. It was 2023, sorry, I should say. And it was a great weekend. It went from Thursday through to this probably Sunday morning, and then it rolled into the Eagles playing in the Super Bowl that night. But Eddie he was over there, and he actually went down to the likes of Lennoxtown or anything like that, and he actually got messages from a lot of the players and stuff, ex-players, just the wishes all the best and stuff like that, And we actually done a video then during the weekend and put the video up, and everybody's seen all the players, some of the players like that were playing then, and some of the ex-players wishing the Ploughbhoys all the best and stuff like that. But Joe came over. Joe had a good time when he came over for that too. Like he had a ball.
Yeah, I'd have no doubt. Do you know, it's interesting, again, speaking to some other clubs out in the States, it's not just one night of celebration. We had a great Saturday night. Starts on the Thursday, it goes through the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and often into the Monday. Is that just the way of the world out there? Just a few days of celebration?
Is that not the way of the world back home too?
Maybe. John Joe, I believe that last summer, so Celtic obviously toured the States, and it's a huge opportunity, I suppose. From being from Glasgow, you'll have seen Celtic in the flesh a number of times, but some guys, maybe Matt being quite new to it, Brian from that part of the world, don't get the opportunity to see Celtic up close and personal. How big was it for you guys as a club to have Celtic in your part of the world, and what were those celebrations like last summer?
For us, it was absolutely tremendous. Anytime DC's 2.5 hours away on the Amtrak, it's an easy trip. For me personally, it was awesome because my little guy, he's 11, and it was the first time me and him have been to a game together. So it was like his first game. He comes down to the CSC, watches the games, whatever. But for him to go get to experience it was kind of surreal to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like my cousins in from Scotland for it, so it was a whole big family event. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, I can imagine, and there was huge excitement in the run-up to it, and I've heard brilliant stories since. Matt, did you make it across to any of the games? Did you get to any of those?
Yeah, I did go to the game in DC. and I was able to bring along my dad, Tom Fay, and my friend Doug Michael, and we attended the rooftop party as well as the game. And again, my dad not being a fan of soccer and finding out about Celtic the same way that I did when we were in our seats, just looking around at the away end for us. My dad, who'll be 71 in May, he's attended a lot of Philadelphia Eagles games, a lot of Philadelphia Flyers games, a lot of Sixers games. And he said, in my 70 years, I've never seen anything like this.
Wow.
The boys were just singing from the kick of the ball until the game ended. He said the amount of passion for a club that is thousands of miles away, that has a support base that is perhaps just as connected as the home base in Glasgow. He was just absolutely blown away. And fortunately, I was able to get over to Glasgow through some of our members in 2023. And I was able to go see a game at Celtic Park versus Kilmarnock. And Eddie had actually got me in touch with Joe Mackin and some of those at the Kano Foundation. Mm-hmm. And we were able to go to where the Kano Foundation meets in the church rectory there, see how that operation works, see how the kids are fed, see how the kids are walked to the game free of cost, drinks, food vouchers, and the like. We were able to walk to the game with them. And Joe Mackin had told me that this is probably the best meal that these kids will get perhaps all week, and maybe their only Celtic game that they'll be able to attend. So going from DC here in America and seeing the diaspora of Celtic, and then being amongst those in Glasgow who were also interested to hear the story that we're telling you, was an experience that I can only hope to have again.
Yeah, it sounds like some really genuinely special memories for yourself and for family, Matt. And again, Joe's name comes up. It feels like Joe needs to give us a couple of quid for continuing to plug the Kano, but it's only right to do so because they do some incredible work. We'll link to various things in the show notes for this episode, but KanoFoundation.com, I believe, is their website. And they truly are incredible. They're one of the... Just that they're a body which the Celtic support almost in unison are hugely proud of, and rightly so. Brian, I'll come to you in terms of that, that trip Celtic made out stateside last year. Did you manage to get along? Were you able to attend any events?
Yeah, and I can tell you that, I just I haven't had a chance to go to see him in Paradise, right? To see him at Celtic Park, and I'm going to rumour that hopefully next year. But
yeah,
what I can tell you is I can't tell you how much it means to someone like myself. That's just a huge American supporter of the club for them to make the effort to come over. I mean, first of all, massive thank you to the club and all those folks for coming over, and hopefully they realized how much support they actually have here in America. I got a chance to go to Notre Dame and to see him play at Notre Dame Stadium. Now to kind of tell you how that was a very special moment to me is I'm an Irish Catholic guy and big Notre Dame football fan. And so, my paradise, if you will, is Notre Dame Stadium. Mm-hmm. So to have a chance to go see the club that I love and support play in a stadium that has so much tradition and memories here in America was just unlike anything, I've ever experienced. I mean, to see the lads in the concourses, having the huddles and the chants, and obviously the massive win against Chelsea, and just an absolutely wonderful experience. It's something I'll never forget, that's for sure.
Yeah, brilliant to hear that. Have you plans to make it across maybe next year then? Is that your target?
Yeah, I'm going to drag Chris over next year. So we're gonna do a long weekend and go hit it. He doesn't know it yet, but he does now.
Breaking news. No, that sounds great. Chris, there's obviously I've touched on a couple of the kind of highlights for you guys as a club in semi-recent times, the 10th anniversary celebrations, the tour just last summer. Again, Eddie had filled me in on a few different things. Ronnie Dyla, I believe, popped in at one point. John Fallon rang the bell during the Eagles Super Bowl win in 2017. Any other kind of standout memories from your time as a CSC?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few, but just a note on the likes of the the tour last year. The tour last year was just, I have to add in, it was, you seen the tears in some of the guys' eyes that never seen Celtic before, basically, you know. I mean, Eddie was a big help, was there too, as he is with our fellows and stuff. It was also along with Celtic Connections that helped us organise that. It was a great weekend. But we did have one time before, going to say it was 2012, I think, when Rangers died. I'm near sure, right? I think we had a little blue coffin that we all signed, and we carried it through the streets of Philadelphia, actually onto the subway, through the subway to watch the Real Madrid Celtic game. And I think, if I'm not wrong, John Joe, did we post that to Rangers? Was that mailed?
We considered it. We thought about it.
So that's actually all over YouTube.
I was just about to say, so I think it's something that went fairly viral at the time. The video was doing the rounds. Again, we'll link to the show notes for anyone who might be interested in seeing that. But yeah, certainly a bit of fun back in 2012 at that time. John Joe, just in terms of the day-to-day or the week-to-week, what it looks like at the club. Talk us through a match day there from start to finish. So, obviously there's a time difference which can present its own challenges, but generally speaking, what does a match day look like there? It's the Plough and Stars, isn't it? That's the pub you guys operate from.
The Plough and Stars in Old City, Philly, and we're pretty fortunate because some of the early morning games, there might not be a big crowd. So the owners there, Jerome, Mary and Austin, they've given a couple of the members keys and passwords, and they've given them access to the computer, and they let them open the doors for the boys and go in and turn the TV on. And even usually there'll be a bartender in, but if the bartender's not in, they'll let them pour a couple of pints because they work on the honour system, which is pretty nice. I think that kind of helps keep the club going. If it wasn't for them, I don't think we'd be in the position we're in. That helps big time, you know what I mean? Who in the right mind lets the monkeys run the zoo, you know what I mean?
And I'm not sure if that would work in Glasgow. And there's lots of honour in Glasgow and lots of great people. But I don't know if you could let the keys loose to a crowd of fans, myself included, and hope for the best there. How important is it, John Joe, to have good, solid relationships with your pub there, the base?
It's the most important thing ever because a lot of the clubs have died off because they can't get people to open up for them. Some days the bartender, because for them they've got to put a member of staff on, right? And after losing money every week, it's from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense, And they get it it's great as Celtic, but if you're trying to run a business and you're trying to pay employees, you've got to be making money, you know what I mean? So they're good, and they have an employee there at 7 a.m. So for a 7 a.m. game, the employees have got to be there at 6:30. Some nights they're not going out the bar at 3 o'clock, 3:30. So you can imagine how they bleary-eyed they are when they come in the next day to open up. But they're all good, they're friendly, and everybody, they know everybody. It's usually the same person or the same couple that works all the games. And they have a relationship with the employees, not even with the employees, with the customers, but the Celtic fans. It's nice to see. And they all look out for each other.
Yeah, it sounds great. And it's so important. We hear this time after time how important it is to have that solid relationship with, the owners or whoever's connected to the pub that you're drinking. Chris, if someone finds himself in your part of the world and they want to come and join for a game, do they just turn up at the pub? Should they drop you a note on socials? You guys have got the website. What's best if someone wants to come along?
I mean, we're pretty much open for every game. So, I mean, if they know what time the game's on at, especially if the time difference with her, they can always just show up. But we also do have the 2nd Street Ploughbhoys. We have the website. I think we have Instagram. We have Facebook. So there's always a chance to message us as well to say, can I come along? And they're always welcome. Anybody's welcome who wants to come with Celtic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, spot on. So ploughboyscsc.com, I think, is the website. Yeah. And again, we'll link to that and the socials and the show notes. Just at this part of the recording, I'm always keen to hear individually what your favourite memories are from watching games at the club. So, Matt's shared some great stories about managing to attend a game in person. Everyone's got separate memories of that, but actually in the club itself, really keen to hear what your highlights are. And, we're speaking during a time of real dominance, real success for Celtic. So there's quite a few to choose from. But Brian, I'll come to you first. What's been your favourite game in the club as a member of the Ploughboys CSC?
Well, any game we beat the Rangers is always my favorite game. and my favorite memory. So there's been several of those, but I think, the second time was winning the trebles. We're always, anytime you complete that, that's obviously a big, big day. And any cup day when they're won the league and they hold it up. I mean, we like, to your point, we've been fortunate here. We've been on a great run, so we've had so many great memories recently. That they all kind of blend together. But I think those ones where, big match down to the wire, beating Rangers, particularly I remember beating Rangers in the Cup Finals. Ida scoring the game-winning goal, Adam, and right close to extra time was an unbelievable moment. And I think there was a couple of us in there probably a little. Our eyes were a little misty on that one because it was just such a great day and such a great moment in the club.
Yeah, great stuff. So many big memories. Over the years, so many big Celtic successes. Matt, I'll come to you next. As I say, you're maybe the newest member or the newest Celtic supporter on the call right now. But again, some really big highlights in the last few years for Celtic. What stands out for you?
I might be victim to a little bit of recency bias here, but the game against Rangers where it went to penalties after the extra time, and I could remember reading social media afterwards, and I think Dyson had admittedly said with the penalty that he took that he mishit the ball, and it still went in. But just the roller coaster of emotions that you go through in a game like that, where a lot of the other SPFL games typically aren't as competitive. So when you get a game like that where both sides are digging in, you can feel the anxiety in the pub just as much as you can feel the joy. And in that game particularly, I know John Joe had mentioned that people are so connected with this club and are so passionate about it that there are tears of joy when Celtic are able to pull out a win like that or win the league like we had recently done. I always try and sit next to a member of our group in the pub who's been connected to Celtic for longer than I have, through Glasgow, through Ireland, wherever they've come from, and just to, throughout the game, get their stories and get their feelings. I sort of feel like a journalist in that sense. I do feel that those are the best people to sit next to because they're just the best people to go along for the ride with. I know during one of the recent Rangers wins, I think it was during Ange's term, one of our members, Patrick McLaughlin, always has green smoke. And I remember we're taking pictures and videos outside and there's cars stopping in the street as the smoke is filling the air. And I think at one of the local businesses across the street, we did set off the fire alarm. So then the fire trucks had to come check out the situation, but they were just as gracious as we were in celebration and understanding in that regard. But again, you even have people stopping in the streets, their cars, so that we could take pictures and take our videos. It's like they also know, how much this means to us and Celtic supporters the world over. So memories like that, I do cherish and hold close.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's clear to hear that as well. And you've picked a great recent occasion. Was it 3 each after extra time? The tension of the penalties, everything goes with that. You're up in the game, you're down in the game, and everything else in between. But a brilliant memory. John Joe, there's a theme developing. Brian tells me that any win against Rangers is a good win for him. Matt's going on there, waxing lyrical about League Cup finals. Is it similar for you? Is it a Rangers memory or is there anything else?
Maybe the 2017 Scottish Cup final when Big Tommy Rodri scored at the last minute. It was an unbeaten domestic season. Growing up during the 90s at home, and we didn't win nothing. We watched Rangers win 9 in a row until we stopped it against St John. So you go unbeaten the whole season and win a treble, right? We won the last kick of the balls. It was magic.
Yeah, it's such a special, I suppose, occasion, but the iconic image of Tom Rodri pulling at his shirt that we can all picture at this moment in time, and that was huge. And obviously we face the same opponents this time around. We've got Aberdeen potentially between us and another treble at the end of next month. So here's hoping we've got similar memories to enjoy. Chris, what about yourself? What's the biggie for you?
I think John just stole my glory there, but that game's always been one of my favorites. I mean, I have the picture of Rodri with a shirt and the rain falling on him, and it was just, as John just said, it was an unbeaten season, and it was just that day. I think he scored in the 92nd minute or something. It was, I think. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But it was just, the whole bar just went crazy, and there was tears in people's eyes and stuff, and it was just such a great moment.
Yeah, I'd have no doubt about it. And there's a guy who's probably not everybody's favourite in Celtic now in the shape of Craig Gordon, the goalkeeper, but there is a really iconic image of Craig Gordon falling onto his knees the moment that Tom Rodri scores that goal. A special memory, and as I say, there's so many to choose from. Chris, I'll stay with you at the moment, and we've obviously, spoken about the background of the club and various different events and different folks have been quoted throughout. Are there any members of the club that maybe aren't joining us here on the call today that you'd like to mention or deserve mention for their ongoing support of what you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, we've got Anthony McGonigal. He's he does a lot of our fundraising, helps with fundraising, stuff like that. He's always there in the background. He doesn't do too, he doesn't like to be in the limelight that much, but he likes just to help along and stuff. And then Seamus Cummings, he's one of the original members, and he does all our web stuff online here. And then he actually designs all our badges and stuff like that for our scarves, our T-shirts, stuff like that there. So, I mean, and I want to thank the rest of the committee as well, and the rest of our members. Without them, we wouldn't have a club, So it's always great to have the backing of a good bunch of boys,
Yeah, absolutely, and great to hear that, and absolute credit where it's due. Brian, just in terms of, I've maybe mentioned this earlier to John Joe, but ongoing challenges can be a thing, whether it's financial or a lack of support or timings and different things. But generally speaking, what are the challenges you believe the club face? But on the other side of that, what's your hopes and aspirations for the next few years and beyond for the Ploughboys?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I can tell you is I think that we do a pretty good job of running our group. Now, I mean, I think any CSC will tell you that there's potential challenges with adding in new members and kind of keeping it going, and the fundraising part of it, I mean, is certainly a challenge. But I think, not to sound overconfident or anything here, but I think, we do a pretty good job of really staying on things, keeping our books in order, and and are able to do big things. I mean, I think one of the things I think our club is really, really good at. I mean, the day-to-day club kind of runs smoothly in terms of, once you get the fees, as long as John mentioned earlier, you have the bar support, which we have great support and a great place to watch the matches. It kind of, I think, runs relatively smoothly. But I think where we really shine is on the big things like putting together the Felas, or our club comes to America, putting together trips, putting together rooftop things. So, I mean, I think other than just making sure we're continuing to stay funded, I mean, I'm sure that's the same as every CSC club, trying to get members paid on time, which I think we do a pretty good job of. I think we're very fortunate that the members we do have do show up and support. I mean, I think, there's always challenges of making sure people do come and support the pub, to John Joe's point earlier. If they're going to make the effort to open up the matches for the 7:30 a.m. matches for us here locally, I think it's important that we go in and kind of, support the staff that make the effort to come in and open up the pub for us. But long-term aspirations, I mean, I hope we continue to get bigger. I hope we continue to get better. I'm very proud of the work that we're able to do charitable-wise, and supporting the great club that we love.
Yeah, and it goes without saying, we wish you the very best with whatever the future holds for the club. John Joe, on that note, I believe there's a big event coming up in February of next year. I'm not sure if you can tell us too much about it just now, but if so, what's the plan there?
I guess in previous years we call it Australia, when we do a weekend, and we bring in Celtic fans before they came over. That's when John Fallon came over the 1 year for it. Colburn came over another year. George McCluskey and his son Barry came over for it. It's always a good laugh. We've had Millish do it. We had the young boy up, one of the other Celtic podcasts do it. It's basically just, they had one in Pittsburgh there this year. Everybody gets together and they have a laugh. Every summer there'll be, or usually every summer there's a convention. Every other summer it's in Vegas, and then the off year it'll go somewhere else. But this year it's in Vegas. The next summer it's going to New Orleans, which is a must for anybody that's never been to New Orleans. So we started doing something back maybe 2013 in the winter time, just to get us through the winter. Cheer everybody up, give us an excuse to get together for a drink. There's Deco, he's the Federation up north in Canada. There was a bunch of them got the idea together. I think it was actually Deco's birthday, and it started out as Deco's birthday party, and then it became like an annual or every 2-year event. We got lucky. We used to plan it around Super Bowl Sunday, because at the time the Eagles sucked and there was nobody went out to watch. The Super Bowl was a dead rubber, you know what I mean? And then we got lucky and the Eagles started getting good, and 1 year the Eagles got to the Super Bowl. And a lot of guys stayed on for it, and the Eagles went on to win it. John Fallon sat there ringing the bell. I think John brought us all the luck. We're going to bring it back maybe the next time they're in it.
And is there a good network, John Joe, between the various CSCs, particularly in America? There's obviously Celtic supporters clubs globally, but do you have good relationships? You mentioned the guys at Pittsburgh, and I spoke to Clinton and Sean and Patrick from Pittsburgh quite recently for one of these episodes. Do you have good link-ups with them and the various other clubs throughout the States?
There is now, but more so now with like social media and group texts and stuff. Like next week, there's a bunch of our boys. We'll watch the Rangers game up in Dempsey's with the Fenian boys. There's a bunch of the boys go up and down from there, and then with people travelling on business. I know a bunch of boys went out with the Chicago boys earlier in the year. They get about. So it became a small country as far as the CSCs. 25 years ago, you didn't know too many. There was the North American teams. There was an email thing. You couldn't put faces to names. But now, going to Vegas and going to events here or Pittsburgh, everybody knows each other, which is nice. It's like a small family, and it's nice. You have the events and everybody gets to meet up again.
Yeah, and it's great to hear about that ongoing sense of community there. It's so important to helping everybody grow and develop, and and build on what you're already doing. Matthew, I'm going to come to Chris in just a second for his final comments as president. But from your own point of view, your own final thoughts as someone, as we've touched on, who is new to Celtic but hugely passionate already. I can hear that in your various responses. So your own final comments on being part of the fairly unique Celtic family.
Yeah, I really feel like, again, it starts with soccer, or it starts with a pint. And then it becomes much more than that. I consider these boys my friends, my family. There's a term here in America, we call it framily, friends who are family. During the season, my weekends are organized around game times. If there's an early morning Saturday game, such as this weekend, I actually got a text from one of my friends that wanted to get together at 8:30 p.m. on Friday night. And I was available, but I was also unavailable because I had to get to bed early so that I could get up at 5:30 in the morning to go watch the boys. So during the season, my weekends, again, are literally scheduled around when to make game times. And I know one of our members, Declan Rogers, the brother of Brendan, made it expressly clear to Brendan to tell the players that people here in America get up very early to watch these games, organize their schedules around it. And he wanted to make sure that he expressed that importance, just in case some of the boys on the pitch didn't know how big Celtic is here in America. And I did hear a quote recently on one of the documentaries that I watched on YouTube. One of the people that was documented in the documentary that had asked, is Celtic life or death? And he said, no, it's much more than that. And that's the feeling that you get from people that you talk to in Glasgow, from people that you talk to here in North America. I know there's CSCs in most countries the world over. So I plan on continuing to fly the green and white flag, and this is something that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. So I'm very grateful for the boys. I'm very grateful for Celtic and my connection to this club.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's just a hugely passionate and brilliant answer, Matt. And I love the quote at the start. You said it starts with a pint and it then becomes much more than that. That might well end up being the title of this episode, but we'll see. But Great to have you on board, and thanks for your responses throughout this recording. Chris, as I say, president of the club, final words will go to yourself. I've asked, Brian and John Joe specifically, hopes, dreams, aspirations for the future. So on a similar note, what's your final comments for this recording?
Well, I mean, hopes and dreams are always has to be for the club to get bigger and hopefully become one of the bigger clubs in the country. I mean, it's always great to have the likes of the backing from our boys down in Dallas and stuff, and Pittsburgh, and the rest of the clubs that have supported us during our failures and stuff and all. But we always do want to make the club bigger and better, and more members and stuff, and then also do whatever we can for our members to keep them interested and keep them coming to games, But I mean, I can't say any more about the boys that I'm on the committee with, and the rest of our members that we have. That they're a great bunch of guys, and I couldn't want any more from that. But again, hopefully the club gets bigger and better.
Yeah, and that's got to be the hope. But it sounds like you're in a good position to kick on, and it sounds like you're doing so much work. As I say, common themes seem to come through. Community and charity, they've come through in this recording as strong as anything else. And as I say, it does go without saying, genuinely, that we wish you all the very best for the future of the Ploughbhoys CSC. So to Matthew, to John, Joe, to Brian, and to Chris, a huge thanks for joining me here on the Celtic Exchange. Remember, get in touch if you want to feature your CSC on a future episode. Drop us a note at tino@thecelticexchange.com. But in the meantime, thanks to the guys at the Ploughbhoys CSC. A brilliant episode with some brilliant guys. We'll see you all again really soon.